Jake Morrison felt the ship shake around him as another system failed. Red lights flashed on every wall of the small control room. The computer's voice kept repeating the same warning over and over. Engine failure. Life support at 30%. Engine failure. Life support at 30%. Jake hit the controls hard with his fist. Nothing changed. The red lights kept flashing. The warnings kept coming. His ship was dying in the middle of empty space, and he was going to die with it. He had been out here for 6 months, looking for rare metals in the rocks that floated between the stars. The company back on Earth paid good money for the right kind of metals. Jake needed that money. His sister back home was sick, and the doctors cost more than most people made in a year. But now none of that mattered. His ship was broken, and he was too far from any human world to call for help. The nearest human base was 3 weeks away, even if his ship was working perfectly. With the engines dead, it might as well be on the other side of the galaxy. Jake looked at the communication system. It was still working, barely. He could send out a distress call, but who would hear it? There were no human ships out here, no human colonies. Nothing but empty space and rocks. Still, he had to try. Jake turned on the emergency beacon and spoke into the microphone. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the mining ship Lucky Strike. My engines are dead. Life support is failing. I am in the Kepler 442 system, near the large asteroid field. If anyone can hear this, please help. I repeat, this is an emergency. Please help." He sent the message out into space and waited. Hours passed. Nothing came back. Jake sent the message. Again and again. Still nothing. The air in the ship was getting thin. Jake could feel it getting harder to breathe. The heating system was failing too. It was getting cold. In a few more hours, the cold would kill him even if the bad air did not. Jake thought about his sister Mary. She was only 25, but the sickness was eating her up from the inside. The doctors said they could help her, but it would cost everything Jake had and more. That was why he had come out here, risking his life in the empty space between stars. Now he would never see her again. Jake was starting to fall asleep when the communication system made a sound. Someone was trying to talk to him. He grabbed the microphone so fast he almost broke it. "This is Captain Morrison. Can you hear me?" A strange voice answered. It sounded like a person, but different. The words were clear, but there was something odd about the way they were spoken. "Captain Morrison, this is Sub-Commander Vex High of the Zephyrian ship Wind's Grace. We have received your distress call. Are you injured?" Jake had never heard of Zephyrians before. They were not human, that was clear. But right now, he did not care if they were monsters. They were someone who could help. "I am not hurt, but my ship is dying. Engines are dead. Life support is almost gone. I have maybe 6 hours of air left. We understand. We are moving to your location now. Stay calm. Help is coming." The voice went quiet. Jake sat back in his chair and tried not to think about the bad air and the cold. Someone was coming. Someone who could help. It did not matter that they were aliens. Nothing mattered except that he might live. 2 hours later, Jake saw lights. Outside his ship, a large silver ship moved close to his broken vessel. It was beautiful, with smooth curves and no sharp edges. It looked nothing like the square, ugly ships that humans built. The alien ship attached itself to Jake's ship with a long tube. Jake heard sounds from the other side of his door. Then the door opened, and 2 creatures walked in. They looked almost human, but not quite. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. They wore clothes that seemed to be made of light itself, changing colors as they moved. The first alien spoke in the same strange voice Jake had heard on the radio. "I am Sub-Commander Vex High. This is Engineer Kiratel. You are safe now, Captain. Morrison. Jake tried to stand up, but his legs were weak from the bad air. Kiratel moved forward and helped him stay up. Her touch was gentle and warm. Thank you, Jake said. I thought I was going to die out here. No one should die alone in the empty space, Vexhai said. We could not leave you. They helped Jake into their ship. The air was clean and fresh. The walls glowed with soft, warm light. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Your ship cannot be repaired, Kiratel said. But we can take you to safety. Where is your home? Earth, Jake said. But it is very far from here. I do not want to cause you trouble. It is no trouble, Vexhai said. We are explorers, like you. We understand what it means to be far from home. As their ship moved through space, Jake learned about the Zephyrians. They were peaceful people who traveled the galaxy, studying stars and helping others when they could. They had been watching humans for a long time, but this was the first time they had made contact with one. We are not supposed to interfere with developing species, Vexhai explained. But we could not let you die. Jake knew he owed these beings his life. He promised himself he would never forget their kindness. 30 years had passed since Jake Morrison returned to Earth with alien technology that changed everything. He was no longer the young mining captain who had almost died in space. Now he was Admiral Morrison, one of the most important people in the Colonial Defense Council. The meeting room was full of Earth's top military leaders and scientists. On the big screen at the front of the room, Dr. Lisa Park was showing pictures of humanity's new ships. These vessels were faster and stronger than anything humans had ever built before. The Zephyrian energy technology has made all of this possible. Dr. Park explained. Our ships can now travel between star systems in days instead of months. Our weapons are more powerful. Our shields can stop almost any attack. Admiral Morrison watched from his seat at the head of the table. His hair was gray now, and lines marked his face, but his eyes were still sharp. He thought about that day long ago when Vexhai and Kiratel had saved his life. The small device they had given him, the beacon that could send messages across the galaxy, sat on his desk at home. How many ships do we have now? Asked General Roberts, the head of Colonial Security. 212 combat vessels, Dr. Park answered, plus over 300 support ships. The Colonial Fleet is now one of the strongest forces in this part of the galaxy. Admiral Morrison stood up. Remember why we built this fleet. We are not conquerors. We are explorers and protectors. Every ship captain has orders to help any species in need, just as the Zephyrians helped us. Captain Amy Rodriguez sat near the back of the room. She commanded the UCS Horizon, one of the newest ships in the fleet. Next to her sat Lieutenant Ben Carter, her tactical officer, and Ensign Katie Walsh, who handled communications. They were part of the new generation of space officers who had grown up hearing stories about the aliens who saved humanity. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez said, what if we meet the Zephyrians again? What are your orders? Admiral Morrison smiled. If we ever meet them again, we treat them as our greatest friends. We owe them everything we have become. After the meeting, Admiral Morrison went to his office. The walls were covered with pictures of human colonies on distant worlds. Millions of people now lived among the stars, all because of what the Zephyrians had taught them. He picked up the alien beacon from his desk. It looked like a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Over the years, he had used it to talk with Vexhai, who was now a fleet commander in the Zephyrian Navy. They had become friends across the vast distance of space. Morrison activated the beacon and waited. After a few minutes, Vexhai's voice came through, as clear as if he was in the same room. My old friend Jake, it is good to hear from you. Hello, Vexhai. How are things in Zephyrian space? peaceful as always. We continue to explore and learn. Your people have grown strong since we last met. We hear stories of human ships helping others throughout the galaxy. Admiral Morrison felt proud. We learned from the best teachers. Your people showed us that strength should be used to help, not to hurt. That makes us very happy. But I must tell you, we have heard troubling news from the outer regions. There are reports of a great fleet moving through distant star systems. They destroy everything in their path. Morrison felt a chill run down his back. Who are they? We do not know yet. They call themselves the Malefic Hegemony. They seem to want only destruction and conquest. We are watching them, but they are still very far away. If you need help, you know you can call us. I know, my friend. But we hope it will not come to that. We are a peaceful people. We prefer to avoid conflict. After the conversation ended, Admiral Morrison sat quietly in his office. He thought about the peaceful Zephyrians and this new threat. The aliens who had saved his life were good at many things, but fighting was not one of them. If this Malefic Hegemony was as dangerous as it sounded, the Zephyrians might need help. He called for Captain Rodriguez to come to his office. When she arrived, he told her about the conversation with Vex-High. I want you to take the Horizon and 3 other ships to the edge of our territory, he said. Set up listening posts. If this Malefic Hegemony comes toward human or Zephyrian space, I want to know about it immediately. Yes, sir, Captain Rodriguez said. Should we prepare for combat? Prepare for anything, Admiral Morrison replied. And make sure every ship captain knows about our debt to the Zephyrians. If they are ever in danger, we will help them, no matter what it costs us. Captain Rodriguez nodded and left to prepare her mission. Admiral Morrison looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the beings who had saved his life were living in peace, not knowing that danger was coming toward them. He thought about his sister Mary, who had lived for many more years because the Zephyrian technology had helped doctors cure her sickness. He thought about all the human families now living on worlds that could only be reached because of Zephyrian science. He thought about the millions of lives that had been saved by the friendship between 2 species. The Zephyrians had saved one, human when they had no reason to do so. If the time came, humanity would save them all. Admiral Morrison picked up his communicator and called the Colonial Defense Council into emergency session. It was time to make sure the fleet was ready for anything. The Zephyrians had given humanity the stars. Now it might be time to give something back. Outside his window, the lights of human ships moved through space, carrying people to new worlds and new lives. Each ship was a promise kept, a debt of honor that could never be fully repaid. But if the Malefic Hegemony thought they could hurt the Zephyrians, they would learn what human gratitude looked like when it came armed with the finest fleet in the galaxy. Fleet Commander Vex-High stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the large window. The Zephyrian home system of Ethros had been peaceful for over 1,000 years. 3 beautiful blue and green worlds orbited their gentle sun, home to billions of his people. But today, the peace was ending. Commander, called out his sensor officer, we are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Unknown ships are dropping out of hyperspace. Vex-High moved to the central command station. The screens showed dozens of dark, angular ships appearing near the outer planets. These vessels were nothing like the smooth, curved ships that Zephyrians built. They looked like weapons designed only for destruction. How many ships? Vex-High asked. Over 300, sir. They are much larger than our vessels, and more keep arriving. Engineer Kira Tell, now the Chief of Defense Technology, looked up from her station with worry in her large dark eyes. Commander, these match the descriptions of the Malefic Hegemony. Fleet, the ones we heard about from the outer colonies. Vex-High felt cold fear move through his body. The Malefic Hegemony was a name that brought terror to peaceful species across the galaxy. They moved from system to system like a plague, taking everything valuable and destroying everything else. No one who had fought them had ever survived. To tell how they could be defeated. Send a message to all Zephyrian ships, Vex-High ordered. Defensive positions around Ethros Prime. Evacuate the outer colonies immediately. The Zephyrian fleet moved into action. They had 67 ships, all designed for exploration and peaceful missions. Some had been converted with weapons, but they were not built for war. The Zephyrians had not fought a real battle in centuries. The Malefic ships did not try to communicate. They did not demand surrender. They simply began moving toward the inner planets, their weapons already charging for attack. Incoming transmission from the lead enemy vessel. The communications officer reported. On the main screen, a terrible face appeared. The Malefic commander was tall and thin, with gray skin marked by dark lines. His eyes were completely black, showing no emotion at all. I am War Leader Sectar of the Malefic Hegemony. Your system will be stripped of all resources. Your people will serve as workers until they die. Resistance will only bring more suffering. The transmission ended. Vex-High looked around his bridge at his crew. These were people who had spent their lives studying stars and helping other species. Now they had to become warriors. All ships, prepare for battle, Vex-High commanded. The first attack came from the Malefic heavy cruisers. Beams of red energy reached across space and struck the outer Zephyrian defense posts. The stations exploded in bright flashes, their crews killed instantly. Vex-High's ships returned fire, their blue energy weapons striking the Malefic vessels. But the enemy ships barely seemed to notice the attacks. Their armor was too thick, their shields too strong. Our weapons are not effective, Kiratel reported. Their technology is designed only for destruction. Ours is made for creation and exploration. One by one, Zephyrian ships began to fall. The elegant vessels that had explored the galaxy for centuries were being torn apart by the brutal efficiency of the Malefic war machine. Sir, the communications officer called out, we are getting reports from Ethros Prime. Enemy ships are beginning orbital bombardment of the cities. Screen, Vex-High could see streams of fire falling from space onto his home world. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were burning. Millions of innocent people were dying. All remaining ships, defend the evacuation transports, Vex-High ordered. Get as many people off the planet as possible. Kiratel looked at her, commander with sadness in her eyes. I will take the research ship, Gentle Current, and try to get the children from the capital city to safety. There are over 10,000 young ones in the schools there. It is too dangerous, Vex-High said. The enemy ships will target anything that moves. Then I must make sure they do not see me, Kiratel replied. She touched Vex-High's shoulder in the traditional Zephyrian gesture of farewell. Take care of our people, old friend. Kiratel left the bridge and ran to her ship. The Gentle Current was small and fast, designed for close study of stars and planets. If any ship could get through the enemy lines, it would be this one. Vex-High watched on his screens as Kiratel's ship dove toward the burning planet. Malefic fighters moved to intercept her, but she was too quick. Her ship danced between the enemy fire like a leaf in the wind. She reached the capital city and landed near the Great School, where thousands of Zephyrian children waited in terror. Working as fast as they could, teachers and parents loaded this young ones into the ship. Hurry, Kiratel called over the radio. I can only stay for a few more minutes. Enemy fire was getting closer. Buildings around the school were collapsing. The sky was full of smoke and flame. Finally, the last child was aboard. Kiratel lifted off and headed for space, her ship heavy with precious cargo. But the Malefic ships had seen her now. 3 enemy fighters moved to block her path. "I will not let them hurt these children," Kiratel said over the radio. She pushed her ship's engines beyond their limits. The gentle current shot forward, faster than the Zephyrian designers had ever intended. The enemy fighters fired, but she was already past them. Then something went wrong. The overloaded engines began to fail. Warning lights flashed throughout. The small ship. "Commander Vex High," Kiratel's voice came over the radio. "I am transferring the children to evacuation ship Heart of Peace. My engines are failing, but the children will be safe. Kiratel, eject from your ship. We will pick you up." "Negative, Commander. Enemy fighters are still pursuing. If I abandon ship now, they will catch the evacuation transport. I must lead them away." Vex High watched in horror as his oldest friend flew her dying ship away from the evacuation route. The Malefic fighters followed her, firing continuously. The gentle current exploded in a ball of blue flame. Kiratel was gone, but the children were safe. Hours later, the battle was over. Most of the Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. Ethros Prime was burning, its great cities reduced to ash. Billions of Zephyrians were dead or captured by the enemy. Vex High commanded the last working Zephyrian ship in the system. Around them, the Malefic fleet was settling into orbit around their conquered worlds, preparing to strip them of everything valuable. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the enemy is destroying our long-range communication arrays. Soon we will not be able to contact anyone outside the system." Vex High looked at the small device on his command chair. It was the beacon that Jake Morrison had given him years ago, when the human had visited Zephian space. The two friends had used it to talk across the galaxy for decades. "Can you give me a few more minutes on the communication system?" Vex High asked. "Yes, sir, but not much longer." Vex High activated the beacon. After a moment, he heard Jake Morrison's familiar voice. "Vex High? What is wrong? You sound terrible." "My friend," Vex High said, trying to keep his voice steady, "our world dies. The Malefic hegemony has come. We fade like morning mist. Remember us with kindness." "Wait, Vex High. What do you mean? What is happening?" But the communication arrays were already failing. The connection was lost. Vex High sat back in his chair and looked out at the burning remains of his home. The Zephyrians were finished. Their civilization was ending. But somewhere across the galaxy, Jake Morrison had heard their final cry for help. Admiral Jake Morrison stared at the beacon in his hands. The small crystal device had gone dark after Vex High's final message. No matter how many times he tried, he could not reconnect with his alien friend. Our world dies. The Malefic hegemony has come. We fade like morning mist. The words kept repeating in Jake's mind. The beings who had saved his life were under attack. The peaceful explorers who had given humanity. The stars were being destroyed by an enemy they could not fight. Jake sat at his desk in Colonial Fleet headquarters on Mars. Through his window, he could see the red landscape of humanity's first colony world. Ships moved constantly through the sky, carrying people and supplies to the growing cities. All of this existed because the Zephyrians had rescued one human miner 30 years ago. He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me an emergency meeting of the Colonial Defense Council. All department heads. Priority Alpha." Within 2 hours, the council chamber was full. General Roberts from Colonial Security sat next to Dr. Lisa Park from the Research Division. Fleet Captain Tony Stevens, the best ship commander in the human fleet, had come up from Earth. Captain Amy Rodriguez was there with her senior officers from the UCS Horizon. Admiral Morrison walked to the front of the room. His face was grim, making him look older than his 73 years. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, we have a situation. The Zephyrians are under attack. He played Vex-High's final message for the assembled leaders. The room was completely quiet as they listened to the desperation in the alien commander's voice. When the message ended, General Roberts spoke first. "Admiral, with respect, this is not our fight. We barely know these aliens. Why should we risk human lives for them?" Admiral Morrison's eyes flashed with anger. "These aliens saved my life when they had no reason to do so. More importantly, they gave us the technology that built our entire space civilization. Every human living on a colony world, every ship in our fleet, every life saved by advanced medical technology. All of it exists because the Zephyrians were kind to one lost human." Dr. Park leaned forward. "What do we know about this malefic hegemony?" "Intelligence reports say they are a conquest empire," Admiral Morrison replied. "They move from system to system, taking resources and enslaving populations. No one has successfully fought them off. They have been moving through the outer galaxy for decades." Captain Tony Stevens raised his hand. "Sir, how far is Zephyrian space from here?" "About 3 weeks at maximum hyperspace speed," Admiral Morrison answered. "If we are going to help them, we need to move immediately." The room erupted in discussion. Some council members argued that humanity should not get involved in an alien war. Others said it was too dangerous to fight an enemy they knew nothing about. Admiral Morrison slammed his hand on the table and the room went quiet. "Listen to me," he said. 30 years ago, I was dying alone in space. The Zephyrians could have left me there. Their rules said they should not interfere with primitive species. But they chose to save me anyway, because it was the right thing to do." He looked around the room at each person. "Now they are dying, and we have the power to help them. What kind of people are we if we abandon our friends when they need us most?" "Captain." Rodriguez stood up. "Admiral, the Horizon and her crew volunteer for this mission." Captain Stevens nodded. "The Defiance is ready to go, sir." One by one, other fleet commanders volunteered their ships. Even some of the council members who had argued against the mission began to change their minds. General Roberts sighed. "If we are going to do this, we need to do it right. How many ships can we deploy immediately?" Dr. Park checked her datapad. "We have over 200 combat vessels ready for action, plus support ships for supplies and medical aid. That is more ships than most species have in their entire fleets," Captain Stevens said. Admiral Morrison felt hope for the first time since receiving Vex-High's message. "Dr. Park, what is the status of our newest weapon systems?" "All ships will be equipped with quantum torpedoes and phase shield technology. Our AI targeting systems can track hundreds of enemy targets at once. We also have the new fighter squadrons with experienced pilots." "Good. Captain Stevens, I want you to lead this mission. Take the Defiance as your flagship." "Captain Rodriguez, you will command the advanced scout group. I want to know everything about the enemy before we engage them." Captain Stevens stood at attention. "Admiral, what are our rules of engagement?" Admiral Morrison was quiet for a moment, thinking about Kiratel and the thousands of Zephyrian children she had died to save. "You will destroy any malefic ship that threatens innocent lives. You will protect Zephyrian civilians at all costs. And you will make it clear to this hegemony that humanity protects its friends." The meeting continued for hours as they planned the largest military operation in human history. Supply ships would carry extra fuel and ammunition. Medical ships would help wounded Zephyrians. The newest and strongest human warships would face an enemy that had never been defeated. As the sun set over Mars, Admiral Morrison stood in the Fleet Command Center. Through the windows, he could see hundreds of ships preparing for departure. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled was getting ready to jump across the galaxy to help the aliens who had once saved a single human life. "Captain," Stevens approached him. Admiral, the fleet is ready. All ships report, prepared for hyperspace. Jump. Admiral Morrison picked up the fleet communication system. His voice would now reach every human ship preparing for battle. Attention all ships. We go today not as conquerors, but as friends keeping a promise. 30 years ago, the Zephyrians saved one of us when they could have left him to die. They asked for nothing in return. They shared their knowledge freely and helped us become the spacefaring civilization we are today. He paused, thinking about Vex-High and all the conversations they had shared over the years. Now our friends are in danger, and they have called out to us in their darkest hour. We will answer that call. We will show the galaxy what humanity can do when we stand together for what is right. Today, we repay a debt of honor. Today, we show the universe that humans never forget their friends. The fleet began to move. One by one, the great ships activated their hyperspace drives and disappeared in flashes of light. Within an hour, over 200 human warships were racing across the galaxy toward the Zephyrian home system. Admiral Morrison watched until the last ship was gone. Then he sat down at his desk and picked up the dark beacon, hoping that somehow Vex-High was still alive to see humanity's answer to his call for help. Fleet Commander Vex-High sat in the command chair of his damaged ship, watching his people die. 3 days had passed since the Malefic attack began. The beautiful worlds of the Ethros system were now covered in smoke and fire. Most of his fleet was destroyed, and the enemy was preparing to begin harvesting operations. Sir, his sensor officer said quietly, I am detecting energy signatures at the edge of the system. Vex-High did not look up. More Malefic ships, probably. The enemy seemed to have endless numbers of vessels. How many this time? He asked, Sir, you need to see this. These are not Malefic ships. Vex-High raised his head and looked at the sensor display. His large dark eyes went wide with shock. The screen showed over 200 ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. But these vessels were not the dark, angular warships of the hegemony. These ships were sleek and powerful, with the design markings of human construction. Are those ... human ships? The sensor officer whispered ... before Vex-High could answer. His communication system activated. A familiar voice filled the bridge, a voice he had not expected to hear again. Zephyrian vessels. This is Fleet Captain Tony Stevens of the Colonial. Fleet, we received your call for help. Humanity has arrived. Vex-High felt something he had not felt in days. Hope. His hands shook as he activated his transmitter. Fleet Captain Stevens, this is Vex-High. We thought ... we thought we were alone. Not anymore, Commander. We brought some friends. On his display screen, Vex-High watched the human fleet spread out in perfect formation. The ships moved with precision and purpose that spoke of years of training. These were not the simple mining vessels and exploration ships that humans had possessed decades ago. This was a war fleet built by a civilization that had learned to use Zephyrian technology better than the Zephyrians themselves. War leader Sektar of the Malefic hegemony was equally surprised by the arrival of the human fleet. He stood on his command ship, studying the new arrivals with his black, emotionless eyes. What species is this? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, war leader. But their ships show advanced technology. Energy readings are very high. Sektar was not concerned. The Malefic hegemony had conquered hundreds of worlds. No species had ever successfully resisted them. These newcomers would be destroyed like all the others. Send a warning message. Tell them to leave or be destroyed. But before the Malefic commander could send his message, the human fleet acted. Captain Amy Rodriguez led the advance squadron in a lightning strike against the enemy's outer ships. The UCS Horizon and her escort vessels moved faster than the Malefic sensors could track. Quantum torpedoes, Weapons developed from Zephyrian energy technology struck the enemy ships with devastating force. Malefic vessels that had seemed invincible suddenly exploded in brilliant flashes of light. "Captain," Rodriguez's voice came over the fleet communication channel. "This is Horizon Actual. First strike successful. Enemy shields are weaker than expected. All ships, weapons free." The battle erupted across the entire star system. Captain Rick Morgan's heavy cruiser Thunderbolt led a formation of human battleships directly at the Malefic command group. The enemy ships fired their red energy beams, but the human vessel's phase shields deflected most of the damage. "Return. Fire," Captain Morgan ordered. "Show them what human engineering can do." The Thunderbolt's main guns fired in sequence, each shot precisely aimed by AI targeting systems. The massive Malefic dreadnought that had been bombarding Ethros Prime took direct hits along its hull. Armor plating that had never been damaged before began to crack and break apart. Captain Nina Cross's carrier Stormwing launched fighter squadrons that swarmed through space like angry insects. The small, fast ships darted between the larger vessels, striking with pinpoint accuracy at weapon systems and engines. The Malefic fleet, designed to destroy defenseless worlds, found itself facing an enemy that fought back with superior technology and flawless coordination. For the first time in centuries, the hegemony was losing a battle. War leader Sektar watched in growing horror as his ships were systematically destroyed. How is this possible? What kind of weapons do they have? His tactical officer checked. The battle reports with shaking hands. "War leader, we have lost over 60 ships. Their technology is more advanced than ours. We must retreat." The Malefic hegemony does not retreat. Sektar roared, but even as he spoke, more of his ships were exploding. The human fleet moved through his forces like a storm, unstoppable. And Merciless Fleet, Captain Stevens opened a communication channel to the entire Malefic fleet. His voice was calm and cold. "Attention, Malefic vessels. You have attacked peaceful beings who are under human protection. You have killed innocents and destroyed worlds. This ends now." He paused, watching as another enemy cruiser exploded under concentrated fire from human ships. "You will withdraw from this system immediately. You will release any prisoners you have taken. And you will tell your empire this: humanity protects its friends. Attack Zephyrian space again, and we will return with 10 times this number of ships." War leader Sektar looked around his bridge. Half of his fleet was gone. The rest was retreating in disorder. He had never faced an enemy like this before. "All ships, withdraw to hyperspace," he ordered. "We will report this to the High Command." As the surviving Malefic ships fled into hyperspace, the human fleet moved to help the remaining Zephyrians. Medical ships docked with damaged alien vessels. Supply ships brought food and medicine to refugee transports. Fleet Captain Stevens brought the Defiance alongside Vexhi's ship. The two commanders met in the docking bay, where the aging Zephyrian fleet commander embraced the human captain. "You came," Vexhi said, his voice full of emotion. "After all these years, you came to help us. Admiral Morrison sends his regards." Captain Stevens replied. "He said to tell you that humans never forget their friends." Tears ran down Vexhi's face as he looked around at the human ships surrounding his damaged vessel. Each ship carried the symbol of the colonial fleet, but also a small Zephyrian friendship emblem that Admiral Morrison had ordered placed on every vessel years ago. "Kiratel would have loved to see this," Vexhi said softly. "She always believed that friendship was the strongest force in the universe." Captain Stevens nodded. "Admiral Morrison told us about her sacrifice. Our medical ships are already helping the children she saved. They will be cared for as if they were our own." Over the following days, the human fleet worked tirelessly to help the Zephyrian survivors. Engineering teams helped repair damaged ships. Medical officers treated wounded civilians. Supply officers distributed food and temporary shelters, too. Refugees. Dr. Lisa Park arrived on a special science vessel, bringing the most advanced medical technology humanity possessed. Working with Zephyrian doctors, they began treating injuries that would have been fatal just days before. Captain Rodriguez found Vex High standing in the observation deck of the Defiance, looking out at the damaged world of Ethros Prime. "It will take many years to rebuild," Vex High said sadly. "You will not rebuild alone," Captain Rodriguez replied. "Humanity owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid. We will help you restore your worlds. We will help you build new colonies. And we will make sure the Melithic hegemony never threatens you again." She handed Vex High a small device. It looked similar to the beacon that Admiral Morrison had carried for so many years. "This is connected directly to Colonial Fleet headquarters," she explained. "If you ever need help again, just activate it. Every human ship in the galaxy will receive the signal." Vex High held the device carefully in his hands. "Why do you do this for us? You could have stayed safe in your own territory." Captain Rodriguez smiled. 30 years ago, your people saved one human when you had no obligation to do so. That one act of kindness changed the course of our entire civilization. Today, we returned the favor." She looked out at the stars, where human and Zephyrian ships worked together to repair the damage of war. "Besides," she added, "friends help friends. That is what makes us better than empires like the Melithic hegemony." Weeks later, Admiral Morrison received a message from the fleet. The Melithic hegemony had been driven from Zephyrian space. Reconstruction efforts were beginning. A permanent human defense force would remain to protect the Ethros system. But the most important news came in a personal message from Vex High to his old friend. "Jake, I am sending you recordings of human and Zephyrian children playing together in the refugee camps. They laugh in the same language, even though they come from different worlds. Kiratel always said that the future belonged to friendship, not fear. I think she was right." Admiral Morrison sat in his office, watching the recordings of human and alien children running and playing together. Their parents, both species, watched with smiles on their faces. The beacon that had once carried a cry for help now carried songs of friendship across the stars. The Zephyrians had saved one human, and in return, humanity had saved an entire civilization. But more than that, they had proven that kindness could grow across the years and across the galaxy. One act of mercy had become a fleet of rescue ships. One rescued miner had become a friendship between worlds. Admiral Morrison picked up his pen and began writing orders for the construction of more ships. Not warships this time, but exploration vessels designed for joint home.